One day I cut myself really badly. I'd been drinking heavily, as I often did, and something blew up at a house party. I'm not quite sure what happened. I remember running home. I'd lost my keys. I found an axe in the back garden, broke down the back door, climbed in, grabbed this massive knife and cut myself for about an hour. Did myself quite a lot of damage actually. I cut my neck really badly, all over the top of my body. When I got to hospital, I was stitched up, maybe 30, 40 stitches, and then I was admitted to an adult psychiatric unit. It was clear that I couldn't go home. I had a younger sister. My parents couldn't cope with it. So after I'd spent a bit of time in this psychiatric unit, I was then given a flat on my own by my social worker. That's when the drug taking really took off. Before that point, my relationship with my parents was pretty poor actually. Growing up it was all right, but in my teenage years I really started to resent them, and particularly my dad, interestingly. He became a Christian when I was about 14 or 15. And I recognised that he had something, some kind of peace, this tranquility. And it sounds bizarre because I could have had it, you know, I could have followed Jesus and it would have been all right, but I just wouldn't, and I hated that he had that. A few weeks before I'd cut myself really badly, I tried to stab my dad with this knife. And I felt like God intervened in that situation. It was almost like this force field came down and prevented me from actually stabbing him. Unfortunately, a few weeks later, with that same knife, I cut myself really badly. But it all really came to a head when I was arrested. We broke into somebody's house one night and we'd heard that he had some drugs and some money, so we decided to steal those, beat him up quite badly, and his girlfriend was there and she phoned the police, and we got picked up a couple of days later. So I was charged with aggravated burglary, and because of some previous convictions, I was looking at about a 4-year prison sentence. Sat in a police cell, wondering what was going to happen, and I decided that if I went down for it, then I was going to take my own life, I was going to hang myself. I just couldn't handle being cooped up like that. The next day, I spun the police a story, which wasn't the actual events, and they said, okay, we believe you. We're going to drop the charges to a £100 fine. And I was let off. So I'm out of my prison cell, I'm wandering the streets of the town I was in, thinking, what on earth has just happened? Like, I should have gone down for that. All the evidence was there. What on earth is going on? A couple of days later, I split up with my girlfriend and I was homeless, and I didn't know what to do. So I phoned my mum. I'd probably only spoken to her once or twice in the last 18 months. And I just explained the situation. I said, I don't know what's happening. I don't know what to do. And I wasn't really looking for an answer. I was just looking for somebody to offload onto. And she said, why don't you move back in with us? And it just hit me like a ton of bricks. Couldn't believe she said it. And I just remember turning up with, it was just a little bag. I didn't really have much stuff by then. And walking through the door, and this sense of peace just hit me. You know, I took one foot over the threshold and it was just like tranquility. This was a thing that I hated in my dad all those years ago, and there I was experiencing it for myself. It was really powerful. Generosity is without doubt the doorway into my life changing. You know, really significant moments of generosity. That one with my parents completely blew me away. Without that, I wouldn't have started to attend a church and I wouldn't have heard from God, really. And more significantly, without God being as generous as he was, offering me free forgiveness. And I remember that moment when I sat in the back of the church. God spoke to me, and I didn't even feel like I responded in any way, but I felt this kind of forgiveness wash over me. One of the reasons that I'd self-harmed so much was because when the blood was pouring out of me, I felt like there was this release of tension. This release of anxiety and anger. And in that moment at the back of the church, that's exactly what it was like, but without the self-harm. I mean, it was like a physical washing over me, incredibly generous. And that really is the bedrock of my faith. I mean, I love theology, I love studying the Bible, and I feel like I want to do that because I want to understand the graciousness of God and the gift that he's given me. My faith has been shaken in various ways, but it will never fail because of that one experience of God forgiving me.